Morning arrives without announcement.
Soft light gathers along the edges of the room, resting quietly against the walls before slowly spreading across the floor. Outside, the world feels distant, as though the day has chosen to begin gently. Louise wakes gradually, not from sound, but from stillness. The air is cool, carrying the faint suggestion of early autumn. For a moment, she remains where she is, listening to nothing in particular, the quiet presence of a familiar morning. The house holds its silence well. Wood settles softly in unseen places. Somewhere beyond the window, leaves move against one another in a slow and patient rhythm. Nothing asks for attention. Nothing insists on being noticed. She rises without hurry. The floor is cool beneath her feet, grounding and steady. Light shifts as she moves through the room, tracing small changes that disappear almost as soon as they appear. The ordinary shapes of morning arrange themselves around her. Table, chair, books left where they were the night before. Everything feels unchanged. A quiet softness rests at the edge of awareness, familiar and untroubling. Nothing asks to be understood. Nothing needs to change. The morning simply continues, complete as it is. Louise pauses near the window. Outside, the sky stretches wide and pale, holding the calm space between night and day. The neighborhood remains still, suspended in that brief hour before routines begin. She watches for a moment longer than necessary. The stillness asks nothing of her, content to remain exactly as it is. It settles gently into the room, calm and patient, like a breath taken without thinking. Morning continues. Nothing moves too quickly. Even time seems willing to slow, allowing each small detail to exist exactly as it is, unhurried, unnoticed, complete. And for now, the world remains simple. Louise remains by the window a little while longer. Morning light shifts almost imperceptibly, softening as clouds pass somewhere far above. The quiet inside the house deepens, settling into familiar spaces, as though the walls themselves remember countless mornings just like this one. A memory begins without announcing itself. Not a moment chosen, not a thought deliberately recalled. Only a feeling returning gently, like warmth lingering after sunlight fades. Water moves somewhere nearby. A lake stretches wide beneath a pale sky, its surface calm enough to mirror the slow movement of clouds. The air carries the scent of damp earth and summer grass. Sound travels differently here, softened by distance, absorbed by open space. A small figure runs along the shoreline. Bare feet press into sand still cool from the night. Laughter rises briefly, light and unguarded, before dissolving into the steady rhythm of water touching land again and again. Louise is simply there, part of the quiet moment. Time feels wider here. Moments do not hurry toward one another. They rest side by side, equal in weight, equal in meaning. The child pauses near the water's edge, watching ripples widen and fade. Wind moves gently through her hair. Somewhere behind them, a wooden house waits quietly among the trees. Nothing needs to be explained. The memory holds itself together without effort. Sunlight, water, movement, breath. Each detail existing without asking to be understood. Voices drift faintly across the air, softened by distance. Words matter less than their warmth, carried more by tone than meaning. The lake remains calm. Clouds pass slowly overhead, their reflections breaking and reforming with each small movement of the water. The world feels contained, complete within this quiet horizon. For a while, there is only this: light, water, and the simple certainty of being together. The moment does not try to last. It simply exists and then begins, almost kindly, to fade at the edges. The memory does not end. It widens. Morning light rests gently across the lake, turning the surface pale gold where the water meets the rising sun. Air moves slowly, carrying warmth that promises a long and quiet day. Time feels unmeasured here. The child walks along the shoreline now, no longer running, her steps guided more by curiosity than destination. Small stones shift beneath her feet, Each movement leaves only temporary marks before the water smooths them away again. Louise follows at an easy distance, neither leading nor calling out. There is no need to hurry. The day seems willing to wait for whatever unfolds within it. Somewhere nearby, wind moves through tall grass, producing a sound soft enough to blend with breathing. The world feels attentive in a quiet way, as though listening without expectation. The child kneels beside the water. Her fingers touch the surface, breaking the reflection into widening circles. Sunlight scatters across the ripples, fragments of brightness appearing and disappearing without pattern. Questions exist here, but they carry no urgency. They drift like clouds, present, changing, never demanding answers. A voice calls from the house, distant but warm. The sound reaches them gently, carried across open air. Meaning matters less than recognition. It is enough to know the call belongs to home. The child rises slowly, sand falls from her hands. She turns toward the trees, pausing once more to look back at the water, as though memorizing something she does not yet know she will miss. Louise watches the moment settle. Nothing insists on permanence. The lake continues its quiet motion, accepting each passing second without resistance. Time moves differently here. Not forward, not backward, only outward, expanding softly to hold everything at once. Light grows brighter. Shadows shorten. The world becomes clearer, though no less gentle. Somewhere beyond awareness, the day advances, but here the moment remains untouched by urgency. For a while longer, there is only movement without destination, presence without effort, and slowly, without resistance, the moment begins to loosen its hold. The day moves forward almost unnoticed. Light settles higher in the sky, softening the colors of the lake, until water and air seem nearly the same. Sounds grow quieter, as though distance has gently increased between things. The child walks beside Louise now, their steps falling into an easy rhythm. Neither speaks. There is comfort in the shared silence, in the simple awareness of being near one another. Wind moves across the water again. Small waves reach the shore and reach and retreat, each one leaving less trace than the last. The pattern repeats patiently, unchanged by time. Clouds gather slowly overhead. Their shadows pass across the lake, dimming the light for a moment before releasing it again. Nothing feels sudden. Even change arrives softly here. The child pauses. She looks toward the horizon, eyes following something unseen. Perhaps a bird moving too far away to hear. Perhaps only the motion of light shifting across distant hills. Louise waits beside her. There is a feeling difficult to name, gentle but heavy, like a memory remembered, before it has fully happened. It does not disturb the quiet. It simply exists within it. The air cools slightly. Leaves stir along the shoreline, turning over one another with a dry and whispering sound. Somewhere behind them, the house stands unchanged, its windows reflecting the brightening sky. Time continues, though it feels less certain now where one moment ends and another begins. The child walks ahead a few steps. For an instant, distance appears between them, small, ordinary, hardly noticeable, yet the space feels larger than it should. Then she turns back, smiling faintly, as though nothing has shifted at all. The lake remains calm. Light moves across the water once more, smoothing every ripple into stillness. The world accepts each passing moment without holding on to it, and the quiet feels slightly larger than before. The lake remains still for a while longer. Light drifts across the water, softening every edge until distance becomes difficult to measure. The shoreline blurs gently into reflection, sky and earth sharing the same quiet space. A sound enters slowly. At first it belongs to the wind, or seems to. A low vibration, steady and distant, threading itself through the air without urgency. The water trembles almost imperceptibly, small patterns forming and dissolving along the surface. The child does not react. She continues walking, her attention held by the shifting light beneath her feet. Each step feels suspended, as though time has grown careful not to disturb the moment. The sound returns, closer now, though still indistinct. Not loud enough to interrupt the calm, only present enough to be noticed at the edge of hearing. Leaves stir along the shoreline. Their movement carries a different rhythm than before. Less like wind, more like motion passing somewhere beyond sight. Shadows change direction subtly, stretching across the ground in unfamiliar ways. Louise looks up. The sky appears unchanged, pale and open, yet something about it feels subtly different now. Clouds move slowly overhead, drifting across an endless blue. The vibration deepens. Water ripples outward in widening circles, touching the shore and returning again. The air grows heavier, filled with a presence that cannot yet be named. Still, nothing feels threatening. The world remains calm, holding its balance carefully, as though adjusting to something far away. The child pauses once more. For a moment, everything becomes very still. Sound, light, movement, all resting together in a fragile quiet. Then a distant echo rolls softly across the horizon. Not sudden, not alarming, only different. And the memory begins to thin, like mist lifting gently from water at morning. The mist continues to lift. Water fades into brightness, reflections dissolving gently until the lake becomes only light and motion. Shapes soften, edges loosening, as though the memory itself is growing lighter. A faint glow appears. At first it feels like morning sun passing through closed eyelids, warm, diffuse, without direction. The quiet hum of the world shifts, carrying a new texture beneath it. A voice speaks somewhere nearby. Not to anyone in particular. Words arrive softly, blurred by distance, their meaning indistinct. The tone remains calm, measured, familiar in the way ordinary conversations often are. Louise sits at the edge of waking. The room returns slowly around her, walls emerging from shadow, objects regaining shape one by one. The air feels cooler here, still carrying the quiet of early morning. The voice continues. Fragments of sentences drift through the room, separated by pauses long enough to feel unimportant. Numbers are mentioned, places, names spoken without emphasis. None of it asks for attention. Light flickers gently across the wall. An unseen screen shifts images slowly, colors changing in muted tones. Movement exists without urgency, like weather passing across a distant landscape. Louise listens without fully listening. Her attention moves between sounds. The low murmur of the broadcast, the soft settling of the house, the steady rhythm of her own breathing. Outside, wind moves through the fields again. The familiar sound blends easily with the quiet voices from the room, natural and mechanical rhythms folding into one another until they become indistinguishable. A pause follows. The voice lowers slightly, careful and composed, as though describing something difficult to fully understand. Still, nothing feels alarming, only unusual. Louise remains still, suspended between memory and mourning, while the world speaks gently around her. And somewhere within the quiet flow of words, change settles into the day without asking to be noticed. The voice fades into quiet again. Morning settles fully into the room, light spreading evenly across familiar surfaces. Shadows grow softer, losing their sharp edges as the sun rises higher outside. Louise sits without moving for a while. The broadcast continues somewhere behind her awareness, its rhythm steady and unhurried. Words pass gently through the air, leaving only impressions rather than meaning. Outside, the day has begun. A car moves slowly along the distant road. Tires hum briefly against pavement before the sound disappears again. Somewhere nearby, a door closes, followed by the faint echo of footsteps fading into ordinary routine. Everything feels normal, yet the normal carries a subtle weight, as though the world is paying closer attention to itself. Louise stands. The floor creaks softly beneath her steps. She moves through the house without urgency, guided more by habit than intention. Familiar objects greet her quietly, a cup left beside the sink, papers resting where they were forgotten the night before. The television speaks again, This time, the pauses between sentences feel longer. The speaker's tone remains calm, careful, almost reassuring. The voice describes places and events in measured language, as though clarity might arrive simply by speaking slowly enough. Louise pauses in the doorway. She listens, not searching for answers, only noticing the difference in rhythm, the way silence now surrounds each sentence more completely than before. Outside, wind moves through the cornfields. The sound rises and falls like breathing, steady and patient. For a moment it blends with a distant broadcast until natural and human sounds share the same quiet pattern. The day continues. Nothing changes suddenly. No alarms sound. No urgency arrives. Only a quiet awareness spreads, subtle as shifting light, touching everything without disturbing it. Louise exhales slowly. Outside, the wind moves steadily through the fields, carrying the morning forward without hurry. The morning unfolds gradually. Sunlight fills the kitchen now, resting across the table in long, quiet shapes. Dust moves slowly through the air, visible only when it passes through the light. The television continues to speak. Its voice remains calm, careful not to rush. Sentences arrive with longer pauses between them, leaving space for silence to settle comfortably inside the room. Louise pours water into a glass. The sound is small but clear, steady as the stream meets the surface. She stands for a moment, listening, not to the words themselves, but to the way they are being spoken. Outside, another car passes, then another. Movement along the road feels slightly more frequent than before, though nothing suggests urgency. Engines hum softly, doors close somewhere in the distance. Voices drift briefly across open air before fading again. The world is awake now, not abruptly, but together. Across towns and cities, far beyond the fields, televisions glow in quiet living rooms. People pause mid-morning routine, a hand resting on a countertop, a cup held halfway to the lips, a conversation slowing without fully stopping. No one seems afraid, only attentive. The broadcast repeats certain details gently, as though testing their shape and language. Locations mentioned again, observations described carefully, questions allowed to remain unanswered. Louise sits at the table. Light shifts across her hands as clouds pass overhead. She watches the brightness change without thinking about why. Somewhere, a child laughs outside. The sound carries easily through the open morning, ordinary and reassuring. Life continues around the uncertainty, unchanged in its small rhythms. The voice on the television lowers slightly. Not urgent, not alarmed. Simply aware that something unfamiliar now exists within the shared world. Louise listens for a while longer. The room feels larger than before, not emptier, only expanded, as though invisible space has opened between moments. Outside, the wind moves through the cornfields again, joined now by distant sounds of people beginning their day. And quietly, without agreement or announcement, the question belongs to everyone. The day continues quietly. Light settles into its steady rhythm, morning gradually giving way to late morning calm. Outside, clouds drift slowly across an open sky, unchanged in their patient movement. The television speaks again. This time, the pauses between words grow longer, as though language itself is searching carefully for balance. The speaker's voice remains measured, choosing calm over certainty. Louise listens without turning toward the screen. A faint sound emerges beneath the broadcast, not loud enough to interrupt, only present enough to be noticed when the room grows still. A low resonance, deep and distant, like thunder heard across great distance, softened by air and time. It does not repeat in any clear pattern. It simply exists, lingering briefly before fading back into silence. The room remains calm. Glass trembles almost imperceptibly on the table, the movement so slight it could belong to imagination. Light ripples faintly along the surface of the water in Louise's glass. Outside, birds lift suddenly from the cornfields, circling once before settling again. Their motion feels instinctive rather than afraid. The voice on the television pauses. For a moment, nothing replaces it. only the quiet hum of the house and the distant resonance blending with the morning air. Louise breathes slowly. The sound returns once more, softer now, less like noise and more like presence, something vast existing somewhere beyond sight, neither approaching nor retreating. No urgency follows it, no explanation arrives. The world does not stop. Cars continue along distant roads. Wind moves through the through the fields. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks once and then grows quiet again. Life continues easily around the unfamiliar. Louise rests her hands on the table, feeling the stillness settle again. Whatever has entered the world does not demand attention. It simply shares the same sky, and the morning holds it gently as it holds everything else. The resonance fades into distance. Morning settles once more into familiar rhythms, as though the world has quietly adjusted to its new shape. Sunlight rests warmly across the table, unmoving except for the slow passage of clouds overhead. The television continues in softer tones now. Voices speak carefully, repeating what little is known without urgency. Words circle gently around uncertainty, never pressing too hard against silence. Louise remains seated for a while. Her glass of water stands untouched beside her hand. Light bends through it, casting faint reflections that move slowly across the surface of the table. A phone begins to ring. The sound is simple, ordinary, almost hesitant against the calm of the room. It rings again, patient rather than insistent. Louise looks toward it. For a moment she does not move, allowing the sound to exist without meaning. Outside, wind crosses the fields, steady and familiar, grounding the moment in routine. The phone rings once more. She stands and walks toward it, each step unhurried. The house remains quiet around her, holding the same gentle stillness as before. She answers. A voice speaks from far away, calm but careful. Words arrive slowly, shaped with consideration. There is no alarm in them, only a request, tentative, respectful. Louise listens. Her expression does not change. She asks a single question, spoken softly enough to blend with the quiet of the room. A pause follows. Outside, the day continues untouched. Cars passing, wind moving, distant sounds of ordinary life unfolding without awareness of decisions being made inside the house. Louise looks toward the window. The sky stretches wide above the fields, unchanged yet somehow deeper than before. She listens a moment longer, then she nods, though no one can see it. The call ends, silence returns easily, filling the space the conversation leaves behind. Louise stands still for a while, neither hurried nor uncertain, as though the path ahead has always existed and only now become visible. Outside, the wind moves gently through the cornfields once more, and without ceremony, the day begins to lead her elsewhere.